Okay, so I've actually got a very easy job here. I'm just going to do a really brief introduction to Work Package 6 before passing over to Davey, and then Andrew Bratton's going to come back again to talk about the work that they've been doing. Okay, so to put it in its very broadest terms, the aim of Work Package 6 is to help communities to benefit from the geological story in their area. Now, the word benefit can be interpreted in any number of ways, from financial benefit, from, for example, increased tourism, to an enhanced sense of pride of place that a person might feel from an appreciation of the geology in their area, or any other kind of heritage in the area. Okay, it's an area that's important not only for the project partners. Working with communities is a requirement of all UNESCO Global Geoparks, whether that's with tourism providers, community groups, or educational institutions. And it's also an area that can be, if it's not done with the right approach and with the right resources, it can be very difficult to achieve. Now, to reflect the broad remit of this work package, we've chosen to take a three-pronged approach, focusing on three areas of community, tourism, and education. So through consultation with the project partners, we've developed digital toolkits, which are essentially online resources that will be available to everybody, and they will be able to be tailored by individual geoparks to help guide them through the process of community consultation. In addition, we've also produced tools to assist with the delivery of training within those communities in the same areas of community, tourism, and education. So I'm now going to pass over to Davey. He's going to introduce the tourism and community aspects of this work package, and then Andrew's going to take you through the work that Cosmic Coast and Glens Heritage Trust has been doing on geological field guides and education.
I hope you're not going to hear more of my beard than what I say, so we can get close to the microphone here. Ronnie and I recently had a discussion with our general manager, and we kind of surprised him by saying that geoparks weren't about geology. I know I've heard this before today, but it bears repeating. I can't speak for elsewhere except Shetland, but our geology really doesn't care whether it's a geopark or not. It's completely indifferent. It carries on being geology. I'm not entirely sure if the Icelandic geology is the same. It seems to be a bit more active than ours, so that maybe expresses its own opinion. Anyway, geoparks are not about geology, they're about how we choose to engage with our geology. And in particular, how we engage with communities that are associated with our various geosites. As has been said before, the diverse nature of geoparks means that you can't do a one-size-fits-all. Simply to put information online about your geopark as part of this project would have been duplicating existing provision. Nearly every geopark's got a website or a Facebook page or some kind of social media presence. So we felt we needed to do something a bit different. And we went for an approach that was about self-analysis, about examining how you run your geopark, how you communicate, and about asking the various communities how they would go about communicating with the geopark. We wrote some draft documents, and presented them to the various partners. The documents provided some advice in how to engage with the community, and it asked some questions. We posted these online and we asked all the rest of the partners to comment on them. And we took the collective wisdom of the various partners involved and we amended the documents and changed the questions and we changed the advice so that it's more universal. I think at this point I have to emphasise that writing these documents in isolation as a single geopark would not have worked. It needed that collective process in order for it to mean anything to anybody outside of Shetland. You can't do these things alone, and that's the real value of these transnational projects. So, why engage with a community at all? You don't have to, not bother. Except that the Geopark revalidation requires you to. You have to engage with communities, it's all part of the process. You don't get the box ticked if you don't do the community involvement. That isn't a good reason to engage. It's not about the box ticking exercise. It's about coming up with something that is going to be mutually beneficial to both you and the community that you're dealing with. Your geopark will gain from having an enthusiastic community at its back. Your community will gain from your expertise and enthusiasm. Don't do anything because you feel obliged to do it. Do it because you want to do it. So you've decided on community engagement. It's a good thing. What do you have to offer them? No point in contacting the community and saying, we want to be partners, and then saying, but we don't actually think we've got anything that you want. You have to have something to offer. Now, that could be tours, it could be training, it could be marketing opportunities, joint marketing. You've got experts that can offer them advice. That's going to be a good thing for them. And you've got potentially resources. Resources are an important thing. You have to decide what resources you can make available. How many staff and volunteers can you actually rely on to go and do things for you? Do you have a training budget that you can use? Have you got premises you can use for meetings or for training? Do you have external experts that can help you to deliver the things that you can't do yourself? Can you count on some of your existing community partners to help you to deliver some of those things? And if push comes to shove, are you prepared to go out and find additional resources to meet a need that you've identified in the community? Building meaningful relationships with community groups is never a swift or a simple process. Anybody that's ever tried it will tell you that. That requires a significant investment from either your staff or your volunteers. But in the long term, that will probably be hugely beneficial. By far the most effective way of building a relationship is through direct contact by either a staff member or a volunteer associated with the Geopark. Face-to-face contact is always better than phone. Phone is better than email. Email is better than a leaflet shoved through somebody's letterbox. There's no real substitute for spending time talking to people. And even better, talking to them and showing them around your geopark at the same time. It may well be, and I've had experience with this, that the community group knows more about the area than you do. But never assume that they know anything about the geology at all, because that's very often the case. You should bear in mind that you have a lot that you can learn from the community. As has already been stated more than once, geoparks are much more than just geology. And community groups often have a vast store of local knowledge, which they're keen to share with the outside world. By identifying geoparks as a vehicle by which they can do this, they can present that knowledge, and you can immediately create that all-important, mutually beneficial partnership. Everybody wins. Never assume, and this is me as a storyteller speaking, never assume that because local knowledge doesn't match up to the latest scientific thoughts, that it doesn't have a value. If you wish to encourage non-geologists to engage with your geosites, it might just be that some of the local stories about how a particular place got its name and how a particular geological feature was created might just provide the hook that will allow you to bring in a whole new audience. The allocation of time needed for relationship building should reflect the need to both talk and listen. Don't base it on the assumption that all you have to do is deliver a seminar or hand out a leaflet. This is very much an interactive process with your communities, and will therefore be fairly time consuming. Plan for that. This all comes back to Gail's management plans. And always remember that the group you are talking to may not share your agenda. They may be looking for something entirely different. And make sure that you listen to that and that you realise what it is that they want out of the relationship. Right, you've planned out what you've got to offer. The next thing is to decide who you're going to offer it to.
Me?
Yeah, true. A few people in there that will recognise it. In many cases, this isn't all as simple a question as it might appear at first. You know, when you ask people, who are you aiming this at? Oh, everybody. Well, you can't reach everybody. So you're going to have to do some thinking about this. Physical communities are relatively straightforward. Your geopark will have a boundary. You've probably got a map of it even. And your physical communities will be marked in the map somewhere, so you can go to find them. You know, stick them into your GPS and it'll take you straight there. They will vary in size from a city in some cases down to perhaps a single farm. First and foremost, you need to identify whether your geopark is going to have any impact on these communities. It's very easy to assume that a geopark will always be positive for any area that it comes into. But if you've just bought a nice isolated farm back up in the hills somewhere so that you can have some peace and quiet and a lot of privacy, the last thing you want is busloads of visitors tramping past your door looking at a geosite. So consider negative impact as well as positive. Similarly, and I know of at least one case in Shetland where this is true, if your local heritage centre suddenly finds that it's got no visitors because you've opened up a super quizzy geopark visitor centre 5 miles away, they're not going to be best pleased with you, I can guarantee. Relationships with your local communities need to be managed if the experience is going to be positive on both sides. On the most basic level, you just need to speak to neighbours, landowners, gain their trust and cooperation with regard to access and potential environmental impacts. To spark their enthusiasm would be even better and would pay significant dividends both for the community and for the geopark. Active participation is almost always a better alternative to passive acceptance. Dealing with villages, towns and cities and the groups that inhabit them is more complex, as is likely to involve engagement with a number of different public bodies, community groups, as well as trying to capture the enthusiasm of a larger population. The toolkits that we did require each geopark to assess its own requirements for community engagement, ones that will particularly suit their circumstances. Geoparks are encouraged to make a list of public bodies and community groups in their area and assess whether they're relevant to the geopark or not. And if they are relevant, how relevant. This will establish, before you even approach community groups, what you're seeking from the relationship and what you're offering in return. You might want to consider things like heritage groups, environmental groups, schools, walking groups, climbing groups, kayaking groups, youth organisations, youth clubs, religious groups. The list is almost endless. At some point you will have to make a choice of which ones you want to engage with and which ones you don't. The toolkit is designed to help you make that choice. Building and maintaining a relationship with your immediate community requires hard work and a degree of skill. That won't happen overnight. And it should be approached by developing a structured plan that will allow you to allocate resources that are proportional to the effort you put in. The dividends can be significant for everybody concerned if you can persuade community activists to buy into your message and work on behalf of both the geopark and the community. Geoparks have a defined boundary, it's true, but you also find that there will be communities that want to engage with you that aren't within your boundary. The communities that your potential visitors drive through on the way to your geosite. They will be looking to make a little bit of money from people as they pass through, as well as you do. And you don't want them capturing your customers before they arrive at your geopark. So you're better off to work with them than work against them. You also may find we firmly drifting apart, that you've got a community that spans half the northern hemisphere, because we've all got a similar geological story to tell. It's just as relevant a community as an immediate physical one. Speaking about virtual communities, you'll find those online as well, if you go and have a look. Somewhere out there on Facebook or Instagram or Snapchat, there will be a group that is obsessed with your geology. There'll be the Friends of the Cretaceous, the Devonian Fan Club, the Jurassic Cheerleaders. I'm not sure if any of those actually exist, but I'll guarantee you that there will be a group out there somewhere that you can find that is interested in your particular geology. Find them, communicate with them, use them. These are people who communicate readily and frequently with each other. And they're already obsessed with what you're trying to sell. What more could you ask for? So, as a geopark, you've asked yourself all these questions. Now you need to persuade the community to ask themselves some questions. Communities generally have a limited amount of people, time and money with which to build themselves up. Any project which makes demands on community resources should rightly be questioned on its merits and needs to make a case for the allocation of sometimes scarce community resources. So the first and most important question any community needs to ask is, why any engagement with a geopark at all, and do I have the resources to do it? The job of the geopark is to answer those questions. World's your oyster. Geoparks are a worldwide network. It's a marvellous thing. You know, as a community group, you can not only engage with an organisation within your area that's going to do wonderful things for you and help you with all this training and resources and so on and so forth, but you've got the whole world that's full of these organisations that you can tap into as a community group. A little village somewhere in the north end of Shetland could, through Geopark Shetland, find itself actively engaged in a project with Russia, Canada, Iceland. Isn't that a marvellous thing? There's a whole spiel here that I've written down about geoparks and how good they are and why we do them and so on and so forth. You've already heard all that this morning, so there's not much point in you repeating it. But one thing that you can sell is that being associated with a geopark brings you opportunities to tap into degrees of expertise from all over the world that you couldn't otherwise get anywhere near. Now, potential long-term advantages of engaging with the geopark can be as varied as the nature of the geoparks themselves, but we have chosen to broadly define them under three categories: cultural, economic and educational. Cultural significance of geosites has long been recognised, with many of the sites playing a significant part in the heritage and folklore of the areas of which they're located. Geology has also dictated the locations of sacred sites, of settlements, of industrial heritage locations, and quite often an explanation of the underlying geology can provide a starting point for the wider interpretation of those sites. Geological features will also provide the basis for local landmarks and place names, as well as the foundation for myths, legends, and folk tales. In the case of local myths, the story might quite often point to the origins of the geology, in a strictly non-scientific way, of course. These stories are often ancient and may reflect the cultures of indigenous populations, as well as legends garnered from more recent settlers in the area. A combination of these tales and geological interpretation can offer an opportunity to cross over into both educational and economic benefits for your community. Economically, the geology of geopark areas may already have made an impact. Some geoparks, for instance, have had their geology actually exposed through quarrying or mining. And this may actually continue into the present day. Increasingly, however, geology is having its economic impact through the medium of tourism. Not only does being part of a geopark network promote tourism to a specialist audience, it also helps to promote it to a more general audience that have faith in the UNESCO designation as being a badge of quality. Carefully managed tourism has the advantage of bringing money into the local economy while being non-destructive to the actual geology itself. You'll note the words carefully managed. While much of the community benefits of tourism are through Spain, the local businesses, there can be opportunities for community groups that are non-commercial to earn themselves a little money as well by selling services such as tour guiding or operating a visitor centre. Local entrepreneurs will quite often be keen to use the expertise of community groups who are expert in their own area and are delivering the stories of their own area. Okay, all tourism is about the rocks. I don't suppose I get much of an argument in this room about that. Sometimes we call the rocks by different names. We call them mountains, or deserts, or cliffs, or beaches, canyons. They're also rocks in the day. Sometimes we as humans get creative and we pile the rocks on top of each other, and then we call them castles and cathedrals and palaces. They're still all rocks at the end of the day. A very interesting discussion. We're doing a project at the moment to do up our local town hall in Ireland. And it's a Grade A listed building by Scottish standards because it's got some beautiful stained glass in it. And I was discussing this whole geoparks and whole rocks, tourism and rocks business. And I said, because the stained glass windows essentially are just melted rocks at the end of the day. You can bring everything back to rocks. But when we were doing this project, and we were doing work package 6, we kind of figured out that we might need to do a little bit of work try and persuade some of our local tourism operators that that was indeed the case. So we do have a separate set of documents to do with tourism and tourism development. And we started off by asking Geopark managers to do a little bit of self-examination. And we asked them to look at things like site management, access, car parking, visitor flow, facilities, health and safety, environmental impacts. I'm a member of the Shetland Tourist Association, and I know that tourism businesses will not appreciate being invited along to your geopark if you haven't got toilets and you can't turn a bus at it. So you need to gather that information. You need to have it to hand when you go and speak to tour operators. There's a long established thing in Shetland that anybody coming off a cruise ship is looking for three things: ponies, puffins, and somewhere to have a pee. If you can provide at least two of those three, you're going to get every coach that ever comes off a cruise ship. I'm guaranteed. We set up a little museum in a village called Scallowa, and we operated it for one summer, and that was quite successful, more successful than we thought. And we asked the tour operators at the end of the season if there was anything that we could do to make life better, and they said put in more toilets. So we built a toilet block, and we got a 20% increase in visitors the following year, just by doing that. We also asked the Geopark managers to consider their sites in terms of the following. What's unique about your site? What makes it different from any other site? Why should your visitors come and see it as opposed to anything else? Is your geology easy to explain? I'm not a geologist, believe me. Can you use technologies and interpretation to make it easier to understand? You'll understand by now there's a significant overlap between the different work packages here. Is your interpretation layered so that it allows people to come in at different levels and still get something worthwhile out of it? Has the geology of your site provided you with other visitor attractions? Is it an area of outstanding natural beauty? Is there wildlife for visitors to watch? Is there a cultural aspect to your site? Do you have indigenous stories? Or stories that relate to particular individuals, perhaps? That have something to do with your geology. Are there activities that can be done nearby? Can you go windsurfing? Can you go cross-country skiing? Are there other visitor attractions in the area that you can tie into? Are there hotels, bars, restaurants? People need to eat, they need to drink. Is there any part of your interpretation that is specifically designed for children? Is there any part of your interpretation that's specifically designed for geologists? Because some of them might actually want to come and visit your visitor centres and see what you've got done. How accessible is your geology? I've got a gammy knee, so if it involves a lot of hiking uphill and downhill, I'm probably going to struggle at it. A lot of people that will visit your site are the same. We spent 11 million pounds doing up some of the hidden lighthouse and couldn't get a single bus to stop at it for the first 2 years. Why? because it is a lengthy hike to the top and it is uphill all the way. And some of the people that were getting off the buses were in Zimmer frames. There was no way that they were going up. So the buses simply didn't stop. Once you've answered all those questions, and they're all in the toolkit, all there for you to look at and go at. Once you're armed with that information, then you can start approaching potential partners. The toolkit will give you advice on how to select those potential partners as well, how to narrow down the field. And having established a working relationship, some potential techniques for developing joint marketing. We suggest the potential areas that you might want to look for partners in are accommodation providers, catering establishments, retail establishments, producers, artists, craftsmen, food and drink producers, tour operators, transport providers, community groups and various marketing and tourism agencies. The techniques described for joint marketing were fairly straightforward, to be quite honest. They're not hugely innovative, but they cover most areas. Things like printed materials, published books, websites, social media, editorial and word of mouth. I have to say I'm particularly keen on the whole word of mouth idea because one recommendation from somebody who knows the place is better than 1,000 words in my experience. Underpinning the whole process of developing these toolkits was the knowledge that for each partner in the project and for each geopark and aspiring geopark who choose to make use of this unknown resource, the results are going to be completely different. The tools are intended for adaptation. They need to be examined and changed to suit the questions which individual geoparks need to ask. Each participant needs to prepare its own publicity materials, on activity plans, its own training plans, and operational targets based on self-analysis, and the toolkits are simply designed to help with that process. Above all, if you want to engage with communities on a cultural and economic level, there's one golden rule. Talk. Keep talking. And then when you think you've finished talking, talk some more. The third element of community engagement is education. Education differs, I would say, significantly from most of the other forms of community work, in that it involves a much greater degree of formal structure. Well, it's equally true that there's a lot of informal learning, and Work Package 6 has engaged with that too, and we're currently about 80% of the way through doing a training manual. But any toolkit designed to promote geology in the education sector will first and foremost need to produce consistent materials that can be integrated into lesson plans and curriculum development. Now, I would say Geopark Shetland had a kind of bumpy patch halfway through doing all this, where we lost some significant staff and our general manager inconveniently decided to die on us, which wasn't a good thing. Well, I didn't think it was a good thing, some people may have done it. But Causeway Coast was very good in that they sort of stepped in and took up the baton as far as the educational materials was concerned. I'm very terribly grateful to them for having done so. So, rather than me stand here and talk about something that I don't know that much about, I'm going to invite Andrew Brandt to come up and take you through the development of the educational materials.
Okay, I'm not going to take up too much of your time. Davey's talked about the community engagement with businesses in the Geopark, and the toolkit that these guys have developed will be available on the website. And I would encourage not just Geoparks to look at that advice and guidance, but all of the various heritage and visitor attractions which we have in our different areas. The education element of the work package, Geopark Shetland were originally supposed to deliver this part of the work package, but as Davy's outlined, for a number of reasons they weren't able to. So we took the decision at that stage that we would step in with the assistance of Kirsten Eman from the Geological Survey in Northern Ireland to put together some advice as to how partners could deliver a drift apart education scheme in their area. And the scheme that we put together looked at sort of young children, what we would call primary school, up to around age 10, 11, and then from ages 11 up to 18. And for the younger age group, we decided the best approach would be to put together a series of fun activities which explain the various processes involved in the drifting apart storyline. So how oceans are formed, how mountains are formed, and even how the various rocks are formed as well. So it's a very sort of fun, simple exercise that can be done in the classroom or at home. And those activities will be going up on the website very shortly. For the secondary level, age 11 to 18, we wanted to do something a bit more detailed and to provide a sort of standard level quality of material for the entire partnership area, so that teachers and educators throughout the entire programme area could go and lift some of this material off the shelf and put together their own work packages and programmes on that basis. And the approach that we took went back to an exercise that we did began in the Heritage Trust back in 2013. At that stage, we were able to access money or resources from the plastic carrier bag levy in Northern Ireland. So the government was collecting in a tax of 5 pence on carrier bags, and at the end of the year that would have been distributed to community organisations to do this type of work. So at that stage we worked with Kirsten and the Geological Survey, one of our local field centres, McGilligan Field Centre, and the two remaining schools in Northern Ireland that still teach geology. Northern Ireland, it's often said there's very few other places on the planet that have such a variety of rocks and landscapes in a small area, and in Northern Ireland we're unfortunately down to just 2 schools now offering geology in the curriculum, and it's just, we're starting to make progress in terms of creeping back into the geography syllabus again. But what we wanted to do was try and encourage teachers who didn't have a specialism in geography or geology to take kids out into the field and do some activities which help to improve the outcomes for the teachers and the students in terms of their coursework and exams. So the field guide that we put together was developed by all of us in association with the teachers. We actually took the teachers out of the classroom and worked through this process with them. And for us it really comes back to the point that Geoparks should be there to educate. It's one of the core functions of the UNESCO Global Geopark. And we were really fortunate to launch these guides at the end of that programme for the Causeway Coast and Glens area at an event at the Northern Ireland Executive Stormont. So the photographs, the Environment Minister at the time, we don't have any ministers anymore, but the Environment Minister at the time was very supportive of the work that we did. So we felt that we might be able to apply that approach to the Drifting Apart project as well. And what we wanted the field guides to do in the context of Drifting Apart was to provide really simple, practical guidance about visits to each of the geosites. So everything from health and safety through to equipment that you might want to take with you, down to basic cameras, measuring tapes, all the sort of fieldwork equipment that teachers would use. We then wanted to provide information that related to the national curriculum of each of the different countries. So we went out to each of the partners and said, which sites do you want to include in the field guides, and what elements of the national curriculum in your area are going to be covered by a visit to these sites. We then give a very simple overview and explanation of each of the sites so that the teachers could follow it themselves. And what was also really important was to reference other sites in the Drifting Apart project. So for example, if you're looking at a rock on Fairhead or Murlock Bay in Northern Ireland, that you can connect that to some of the stories of the rocks that you would find, for example, in Stonehammer Geopark in Canada. And we also wanted to put sort of ready-made activities and exercises that the children could go out, or the students could go out and do in the field. And the next couple of slides will just show you the examples of the output. So I guess the finished product that we're approaching. I should mention that this work package should have been finished about 1.5 years ago, but I'm still in the process of getting the information in and trying to get it processed. And really, we're just providing enough information, enough quality information for teachers to confidently conduct field trips with students. And I've just pulled out one example. I do have, Nikki and myself have draft copies of the field guide information with us here, and we'll leave it out the front afterwards as well if anyone wants to have a look. But it shows you the format. It's a standard format across the entire partnership area, providing the very basic details that you need up in the top left: the location, what facilities are available, parking, who to contact, if there's any special environmental designations that people need to be aware of, the list of useful equipment that you should take with you if you're going to carry out a field visit. One of the most important bits is where it relates to the national curriculum in that particular area. But for example, if a teacher from Norway was bringing a group to Iceland, they would be encouraged to contact or make contact with point of contact in Iceland and work out where it was relevant to their own curriculum, for example back in Norway. Very simple overview of what the rocks are, what the geological processes and structures are that you can find at those sites, some of the hazards, site-specific hazards, some of the very simple mitigation measures that you can take. And then a did you know section, which is really where we cover what the connections are between that location and other sites in the partnership area. And we really have given the teachers everything they need. We've broken it right down to the key words at the bottom as well, and topics that you should cover before you undertake a field visit. On the reverse of that sheet, and I should have said that the sheets, whenever they're printed, if you want them printed, are done in waterproof materials so that they can be taken out into the field as well. But we provide photographs of all the key things that you should look at, the things that you should point out, and then a very, very simple geological history of the site. And it is very simple, no more than really 150 words on that sheet. That simple notes for the site then is combined with a much more detailed step-by-step guide that the teacher has that they can follow and takes them through every step of that location and builds up really from the basic foundations right up to the detailed information that you need or that the students need to complete the fieldwork at that site. And we have every single site in the partnership has one of these. And having worked through the step-by-step guide for each site, the students should be in a position to work through the activity sheets for the sites as well. And again, we've designed it really to be teacher friendly. They're printed deliberately in black and white so they can be photocopied. And these activities relate back to the national curriculum in each area. We've asked the teachers and the geopark managers in each area to make sure that the activities that we've put into the guide relate back to the national curriculum. So whenever this is complete in a number of weeks time, we will have guides for 34 sites across the Dublin Park area, and all of the partners have at some stage over the past 3 years been delivering training courses for the educators in their areas, so teacher training course. I know Marble Arts Caves delivered a very similar scheme to the one that we run in Causeway Coast and Glens, and we'll just be finishing our last batch of training in about 3 weeks' time. But I've seen examples when we were in Reykjanes National Park in Russia. I was fortunate enough to take part in their geocamp and eco camp. So we've seen the fantastic work that's been done there with students and geology teachers as well. And we've been getting information in from right across the partnership, even Stonehammer Geopark in Canada, who've gone for a slightly different template for their own teachers because it works better for them. But the base information is there in the field guide for those sites as well. The guide is electronic. We can edit it going forward, so that was to try and future-proof it. So as information needs to be changed, it can be adapted. The PDF can be opened by anyone and updated, and it will be available on the website as well. But as I said, the real aim has been to build the capacity amongst local communities through education. So we want to, I guess, have a new batch of students who are interested in geography, landscape, biodiversity, cultural heritage as well, and try and maybe get something of what we've lost in Northern Ireland by way of geology education back into the system again, but to try and make sure that we're doing that across the entire partnership area as well, because we all have similar issues when it comes to trying to promote geology in local schools. I think that's it, so I'll give it back to you again.
No, that's fine.
Is that it?
Excellent.